What up, footy fans? Welcome back to Pommy and Oz, and today in this video we're going to talk about 4 teams that I find could be anything. They are the unpredictable sides of this competition. We will be talking about the Essendon Bombers, we will be talking about the Gold Coast Suns, we'll be talking about St Kilda and Port Adelaide. So grab your scent, a brew, find your comfy seat, sit down, we'll play that intro, and let's get straight into today's video. The Essendon Bombers, they were a mixed bag last year. They finished 11th with 11 wins, 11 losses, and a sultry draw. You talk about symmetry, that looks like something straight out of the Da Vinci Code. And at times it was a little bit Tom Hank and wank at times. They showed flashes of brilliance but couldn't stay consistent throughout the year. One week they were flying and looked really strong and really fell in that Brad Scott mode. The next they'd crash back down to earth. So let's look at the 2024 in the terms of data and the Premiership metrics. Defensively, they finished 10th for stoppage points against, 15th for turnover points against, a really key metric being able to defend from turnover. Defensive half scores against, they were 15th. Forward half scores against, they were 9th. For total points, they were the 15th side in the league for points against. They were leakier than offensive, and especially from turnovers and that back half of the ground. That forward pressure at times was non-existent. They really need to tighten up that area, particularly when they have the ball. They seem very vulnerable from turnover. If they can tighten that up, that's their key to really breaking into that top 8. Now, attacking-wise, they were 11th from stoppage scores, 12th from turnover scores, 12th from defensive half, 12th from forward half scores, and 13th for total points. On the attack, they were right in that average range. They did struggle to convert opportunities into points as well. At times, it felt like there was inside 50s there for not really much regard. And mid-table in really all the areas was really a fair output. They really need to focus on that firepower, particularly around stoppage and in the forward half, to really shoot up. Now, what do they do in the trade window to address this? Well, they brought in Angus Clark, a very, very young halfback flanker with a lot of scope, real zip, and really can penetrate lines. This is a really exciting recruitment. And they brought in Archer Day Wicks, who I think could be one of the finds of the draft. This player here can kick goals from just about anywhere. He's very well-rounded, and he's got some key points of difference. A really exciting project there for me. Kale Gerin, the ruckman, came in, and this guy here is a real find. I think that this was one of the most untalked about type players. He's big, he's strong, he really is good with his tap work and could be a really exciting find. Zachy Johnson came in, a real point of difference in that half-forward line. Isaac Keiko, an absolute X-factor, and who straight away green ticks their forward line. Jaden Nguyen, a project player here from their NGA. Jackson Pryor, though, lots of AFL experience, very strong, very versatile. And Reece Unwin was also picked up in the draft, another player with a good endurance and a very good eye for the game. Off they lost Kane Baldwin, who couldn't quite cement his spot. He has been training on the SSP. Jaden Davey, injury struggles just never really got going, really. They said goodbye to club legend Dyson Heppel. Nick Hind, he moved on. The speedster gets a chance now to play in local level football. Jaden Hunter didn't quite make the grade. Jake Kelly, he called it a day after a long serving this club. They traded out Jake Stringer. The package has been delivered elsewhere. Tex Wanganeen didn't get retained, didn't quite fulfill his hype. And Sam Wiedemann, that experiment that they had, didn't quite pay off. They had a bit of a clear out and they got rid of a lot of tosh for me, which is a good sign. They've rejuvenated their squad with some young, exciting talent, with some real high ceiling. And losing experience like Heppel, Kelly, Stringer, it could hurt. But I feel like their new recruits offer a lot of hope. Now, when we look at them players, the one that really stands out is keep an eye on Isaac Keiko. This lad's got pace to burn. He's got X-factor in every sense of the word, and he has an uncanny knack of knocking them through the big sticks. In his draft year, he averaged 14.5 touches and 2 goals a game for the Metro, and he is a real buzz around the ground. When I look at Essendon, I feel like it's workmanlike in the forward half. They've now got that big stage, big game player. He's a player that maybe not in his first year, but as time goes on, could be a key point of difference. And we've seen Essendon always cultivate these really exciting type forwards. This Anthony McDonald-Tipperwoody became like a fan favourite for everyone. Keiko is in that kind of mode as well. He's a real likeable character, but he's a real exciting character at that. It's a big year for Nate Caddy. He had kind of, I'd say, like a growing year in 2024, playing the 10 games, just under a goal a game, but 4.6 score involvements, showing a willingness for a young forward to bring his teammates in and around him. He's eligible for the Rising Star, and he's one player that I am going to watch because I feel like he's set for a breakout year. What Nate Caddy does really well is he hasn't got that selfish urge to kick goals himself. He does the team thing first. He gets in great positions. He creates space in behind as well with his leads up to half forward. I feel like if he steps up, Bombers' attack could be one of the more potent attacks in the competition. Now, what did we hear from training? There's not much in like mass positional changes, but what has been interested is Zach Merritt and Darcy Parish have evidently been going really, really strong in the midfield, and Zach Merritt's been playing a lot loose, particularly down half back. Elijah Status has had real good signs as well, showcasing his inside and outside capability, who could be really one to watch. And Isaac Keiko has slot in like a knife going through butter. Archie Roberts is another one that looks like he's going to be really strong. He was a real strong halfback in his draft year, one of the most reliable players. And Syed El Hawi could be another player that really adds that burst and jet off the wing. If you think Jake Kelly's left and Dyson Heppel, who played halfback and roamed up that area, these two would be a massive upgrade, in my opinion, for their ball use, but also their speed. Let's summarise this. It's the 15th oldest list and the 11th most experienced. Despite having a relatively seasoned squad, it is on the younger end, and this kind of explains the inconsistency. But it does feel like they are going to go a more youth-injected system, which I think will really rejuvenate this team's dynamic. We've got them with 8 wins as a pass score. Given their current roster and their challenges ahead, I think 8 wins should be the minimum expectation and have kind of like a reset, micro rebuild type year. I think the Essendon will be looking in this year to try and be the best of the rest at best. Powerhouses are dominating them top 10 spots. Can the Bombers position themselves to be the best of the mid-tier teams and allow themselves a trade window to really break into that 8? Because the attacking stats show it's got promise, but defensively that's where it raises concern. How can they tighten that up? And with it being the 5th hardest draw, surprisingly, it's going to be a real tough schedule with physical and mental demands. For a young team to experience this, it's going to be a real wait and see for me. These questions loom large for Essendon as they go into 2025 season. The answers will unfold on field, but everyone in chat, let me know what you think. Where do Essendon finish this year? Up next, the Gold Coast Suns. Last season, they finished 13th with 11 wins and 12 losses, and they showed flashes of brilliance, but they couldn't string together that consistency, and a side that is often talked about in pre-season as when are they going to play finals. They had that absolute belter versus Geelong versus Darwin, where they absolutely tore them apart, but then they can just surprise you and lose to North, lose to Eagles, and it makes you just wonder what they do. They have really made Gold Coast quite a strong place to play. It's more like they travel. They're a little bit like Guinness. It's great in Dublin. Outside of that, it's naff. And if you say it's good, you're a liar. Now, let's look at them from a data point of view. They were the 6th best stoppage defence side, which is really strong, really showcasing their ability to be able to add some control to the game at times. But again, on turnover, when they had the ball, they looked vulnerable from that turnover, being the 14th best turnover defence side. 8th for defensive half points against, 13th for forward half points against, showcasing that Dimmer has a real penchant for forward half pressure, so to finish there is good. And they were the 13th most scored against side. Now, defensively, they were solid around these stoppages. It was that turnover again. It just really shows that having a bit of ball security and having a bit of ball management is so important, because decision-making under pressure sometimes made the Gold Coast implode. Now, attacking-wise, they were 15th for stoppage scores, which I think is quite a surprise when you look at the midfield that they've got there. But turnover scores were really good. They were 3rd for scores from turnover. Defensively 11th, forward half 9th, and total points were 11th. They really did capitalise on the turnovers and have a real good slingshot. Their scoring from stoppage, though, really is that area for me. When we talked about Carlton as well, that you need to be able to add a little bit of control and add a little bit of dirtiness. It felt like at times that they got clearance for clearance sake and there was not really much structured play around it. So this is definitely an area that Dimmer, even though at Richmond this wasn't a key cornerstone of his system, they were always a break-even side at best. Now, what do they do in the season? Well, Cooper Bell, a young player, came in with plenty of upside. Asher Eastham, again, another player from their academy with a point to prove. Zachy Evans, Category B, he's a wild card. This guy could be anything and has got a lot of scope. And Lockie Gulbin, another shot at the darts, really. Elliot Himmelberg came in now. Big bloke, experienced, second chance. A good guy to work off as well. Good target man. I do like this acquisition. Benny Jepson, he got a chance under SSP, and he will be one wearing to go. Max Noble, a young ruck prospect, who I think could be a real good cornerstone here. Won't be surprised to see him learn a different role while he's at the Suns. Leo Lombardo, an absolute X-Factor type player. And John Noble came in with the experience with Dan Rioli. 2 speedsters, heavily experienced, making that slingshot turnover attack all the more potent. And they lost Rory Atkins to Port, another squad player. Sandy Brock didn't quite make the cut. Levi Casbolt called time on his career. Sam Day, he left over at Brisbane now. Brendan Ellis called it a day. Falkhead parted ways, showed a bit of promise, but never was quite there. Jack Lukosius, huge loss. Big young talent, he's gone to Port. McPherson and Mahoney was shown the door. Huego time was up there. And Will Rowlands and James Status, they were moved on. The Suns were busy in that trade period, though, bringing in experienced campaigners, Johnny Noble, Dan Rioli, to add that dash and to add that potency. And it makes the loss of Jack Lukosius more manageable. I think they can really change that up. They've really gone with that experience down there. And the ones to watch, Leo Lombard, keep your eyes peeled for this, because this guy's got hard edge, fierce competitiveness, pace to burn, and knacks for kicking goals. In his draft year, he had 26.3 touches, 4.4 clearances, and 4.5 tackles, and really did showcase that two-way running, but be a big spark. I can see this guy playing in the forward line and pinch hitting in that stoppage, and him and Tuck Miller could be a formidable string in that ruck contest type area and them stoppages and clearances. He's definitely a player to watch out for. It's a big year as well for Noah Anderson. He's now the skipper, often overshadowed by his teammate Matty Rowell. For me, Anderson is just as steady as they come in the middle of the park. He's a real metronome for everything they do well. He played 23 games last year, averaging 29 touches and 5.6 clearances. If he can elevate his game further, add some finishing to that, I think he can be one of the premier midfielders in the competition. I have him just up there with Matt Rowell. I think Matt Rowell catches the eye, but I think Noah Anderson does all that dirty stuff that goes unforgotten by a lot of people. And the Suns have zeroed in, according to their training back, on that half-back. They've got mass rebounders, John Noble and Rioli, and they've stood out. Evidently, they have been really good. Sam Flanders has been turning heads as well in the training track, dominating in the time trials, and Lombard has evidently taken to the game like a duck to water. Ben King is also in silky touch, and a lot will be expected on him with no Jack Lukosius, and that forward line is going to be his this year. Given the Suns' abundance of young talent, particularly midfield, we are expecting them to come out of the blocks quick and fast. Considering the Suns' lineup, I've got them as an 11-win team minimum. They've been building for a while, and for me, they have to be in that 11-12 finals. Breaking that hoodoo is it. They have to play September football, and I agree with Kane Corns on this. Does it have to be now, though? Like, I'm okay with it because I feel like this is a new evolution under Dimmer. There is key areas of concern, but also strong improvement. Halfback-wise, they've been really strong and they've only got better. They're going to be a dangerous turnover side. But still, that stoppage area, being able to control the footy and being safe with the ball does take into account in these calculations. With the 15th hardest fixture list, it's a relatively easy path, so they really need to bank the wins when they can. So what do you reckon, folks? Are the sun's going to shine bright, or is it going to be an overcast day? Let me know in the comments. All right, then, we're up to St Kilda. I love the Saints. They are one of my teams that I love talking about, and in 2024, they managed to finish 12th with 11 wins and 12 losses, and it was a mixed bag because at times they really did showcase their really strongness. They were one of the sides that really ran some top sides to the buzzer at times. And then they kind of just imploded at the wrong times. Their ability to rise when everyone was against them was phenomenal, but when you really expected them to win, it was at times that they really did look plagued. Inconsistency was the name, really. It really did plague this side. There was a lot of missed opportunities and some really gut-wrenching losses. The Saints often struggled to find just that killer instinct when it mattered, and they ended up finishing mid-table, which was probably where most people expected, but I think St Kilda fans would hold a higher precedent. Looking ahead, though, defensively, they are one of the strongest teams in the comp, so it's about adding that je ne sais quoi up the forward line. They are very well balanced, though, and I think St Kilda are one of the most disrespected sides when people talk about them, because I don't think their list is as bad as people say. And when you look at them from a defensive statistic, second best stoppage defence side, 7th best defence from turnover, 7th best defensive half, 2nd best forward half defence, and the 5th hardest side to score against. Defensively, they are as solid as a rock. They are one of the premier sides, and it's something that we expect from a Ross Lyon-led side. They are really hard to break down. You've got to go in there and you've got to beat them, and if you're not at your A game, they find a way of edging you. But it's attacking where it paints that little different tale, because they are the most higgledy-piggledy attacking side in the league. 17th from scores from stoppage, but 6th from turnover. 2nd from defensive half, but the worst side from scores from forward half turnover, resulting in the 15th side. It's balmy to think of a midfield containing Steele and co, that they can be so bad from stoppage scores. And also when you think Dan Butler or the pressure that they talk about, the forward half is non-existent, and that's kind of game plan led. Ross likes to flood the important areas, which is genuinely leaving one out in the forward line, one forward, and everyone stacked in the midfield. This says that this has got to be an area to contain. I believe championships are built from the back. They've done that. It's time to add that je ne sais quoi up the forward end. Now, in the trade period, they did really well. James Barat, the swingman, came in with a huge ceiling. The category B'd Eamon Armstrong, huge Boxall came in, who is a real strong midfielder that can play inside and out. Harry Boyd, the SSP ruckman, really excited about him. A really solid acquisition. Jack Carroll with a second chance, and he could be that guy that is very direct from stoppage. Dodson came in, Alex Dodson, the ruckman, the best ruckman in the draft, and Jack McRae straight away comes into this side and adds that real accumulation in the midfield and that ability to penetrate with handball. And Patrick said, a young gun who has got some talent, and Alex Tyree and Travalella, top draft picks with high expectations. Both of these two here, massive impact, massive ceiling. Now, they lost Matty Allison, parted ways. He had limited opportunities. The big loss was Josh Battle, big loss for them. Riley Bonner was cut. Tom Campbell, he got a new opportunity. Brad Crouch, Jack Hayes and Ollie Houghton retired, moved on after limited impact in Hayes' case, and Houghton injury struggles led to his departure. They got rid of long servant Ben Patton and Tim Membry. Ben Patton being injury prone and not quite reliable, and Tim Membry it's surprising this one, but they've obviously backed in their young players. Seb Ross, veteran player, but it was time to move on. And James Van Ness, good friend of the channel, he's now got an opportunity to cement his place at the Eagles. For me, bringing in Jack McRae from the Dogs is a big coup. He's experienced, he's ball winning, and he had some much needed grunt, but also some panache there. Losing players like Battle is a loss, but they brought some young, talented players that I think have a higher ceiling than him. And Brad Crouch was always one of them players that we talked about. If he was there, they could be better, but it never quite worked. Some really solid acquisitions for them. I want you to keep an eye on this year on Jack McRae, though. Known for his prowess around stoppage, he's often played out of position the last couple of years at the Dogs, but he's one of the best players in the competition around stoppage and clearance, and I think this instantly makes them better. This reminds me of Tom Mitchell going to Collingwood, and it's ironic that the last time he played in the midfield, it was against the Saints, racking up 30 touches, 6 marks, 7 tackles, kicking a goal, and was involved in numerous scoring chains. He could be the catalyst for them to really go up. And I expect a Tom Mitchell-esque effect at St Kilda, because they have a tendency to overuse the ball, where McRae gets that ball moving. The big year for me is Philippo. He had a rollercoaster of 2024, finding himself in and out of the side. Went away, took his medicine in VFL, and he came back absolutely strong. 13 games, 14 touches, and half a goal a game. But after being dropped, he came back with a vengeance. A goal a game, 20 touches per game, tackle pressure, two-way running. I feel like Matheus Philippo is one of the most untalked about players in the league. His ability of lighting up the competition is going to be huge. Now, he's copped a stress factor at the moment. He'll be out for about 10 weeks. But coming in midway through the season fresh, I think he can knock the door down. Really look out for that, because this is a young, exciting list. Now, what has the noise been from the training track? Philippo was evidently knocking the door down before his injury, and McRae has really taken over that midfield and has really found his mojo again. Big Naz and Jack Sinclair are proving that they are the danger off halfback, really showcasing that transitional threat. Travaella has really been strong. He's been playing on the wing, and this could be really interesting for me, because I think he's everything that they want. Sean Maker has been really strong playing in that third intercept role, and Harry Boyd has really jumped the gun, and he's about second behind Rowan Marshall, so this is really exciting. Max Hall has also got quite a bit of a mention. He has really stood out in the match simulation, and he is a real versatile player, and he's got something about him. Now, going into the season, they're the 14th oldest and the 5th most experienced. This is a young side. So when we're talking about Saints, I feel like people talk about them like they're old. They've got real youthful energy, and they've been rebuilding without talking about it. I've got them, surprisingly, as an 11-win season. And this might surprise people, but I think defensively, you'll come up stuck. And I think they've injected that attacking flair, that dynamicness in the midfield with new recruits and emerging talents and established players like McRae. I think they've got spark with Naz, Jack Sinclair, Toby, all these players. They've suddenly become a real hard, quick running side, which I think is going to run teams into the ground. My only reservation is the 7th hardest fixture list. The road ahead is going to be challenging, filled with a lot of forks in the road. But I think this side is ready. What are the facets of the game that need sharpening, and how can they address that? Well, it's the stoppage, it's the kicking. So what do you think, Saints faithful and general AFL fans? What can they do to make an impact? Where do you have them? And we finished with Port Adelaide. The season for Port last season, I think, is one of the most surprising. They finished second out of nowhere. 16 wins, 7 losses, huge effort. They were dominant versus Sydney, absolutely blowing them off the park, came out all guns blazing. However, in finals, as often as the case, it was heartache, and they fell short, and Sydney were too much for them. Ken Hinckley is often talked about. It's his fault. He's going to get sacked, and we've had that parting of the ways already at the start of the season. They are now having a handover process. It was a highs and lows season again for Port, but they often deliver in the season. It's the finals, that's where you question them. It's now time for them to really do that and get serious, I feel. Now, from a statistical point of view, everything is coming up. Millhouse. Stoppages, they were the 5th best defending side. Turnovers, the 6th. 9th defensive half. Forward half, 6th. Total points, 3rd. Defensively, the most underrated side in the league, I find. You always look at the backs of Port and go, oh, we'll have a field day. They are so well regimented. One of the best regimented defensive structured sides in the league, and it's why they were the 3rd hardest side to kick against. A real strong base. Now, from attack, this is where it surprises. 10th in stoppage, turnover 14th, points from defensive half 8th, forward half 8th, and total points 8th. They are a side that offensively, it's in that 8th position. It's always the lower tier of the final side, and this is quite traditional with Port. Defensively, they dine out on it. It's that ability to really do it. And for every Sydney game you see, it's them games where they just kind of meander through the game. They don't take the opportunities. They have got a side, though, on paper, I feel, that should be dynamic and should really kick a lot of goals. So this year is going to be really interesting with the acquisitions. Now, they brought in Rory Atkins. Now, not brilliant, but what a seasoned player. And I think that instantly really makes them better. The big one is Jack Lukosius for me. Key forward who I think has got all the traits you need. I am really excited. This strong marker, incredible goal kicker, incredible set shot routine. Joe Richards, exciting young forward with one of the quickest legs I've ever seen. I think suddenly Jack Lukosius and Joe Richards makes them exciting. Benny Barrett came in from the Category B, a young talent. Joe Berry, another X-Factor small forward, makes it really exciting. Christian Miraz, a winger with a good work ethic and accumulation abilities. Tommy Cochran, a developing young player. Jacob Moss, Category B, very athletic, a real shot to nothing. And Jack Whitlock, a defender that can swing forward, strong intercept marking and a good goal kicker. They've really focused on these types of players, and I think it's a really good recruitment window. Tom Clory departed ways, he was delisted. Ever reliable powerhouse Charlie Dixon retired. Franny Evans, the forward, he was delisted. Dan Houston, big loss. That half-back line looks a little bit worse without him, a pivotal transition threat. Kyle Marshall, he was delisted with Tom McCullum. Trent McKenzie retired. The cannon as a legacy is a fan favourite, isn't he? Quinton Narkle, he was cut. And Tom Scully never really got his opportunities on the senior side. And it was an eventful period for me. But looking ahead to 2025, how do they fix that Dan Houston hole? And also, what does it look like? And I think Jack Lukosius, known for his precise kicking and his strong marking ability and his sweet set shot, has the potential to be an absolute dynamo with Mitchie G up front. In 2024, he played 21 games, 12.6 touches, 1.1 goals a game. And moving back to Adelaide, he's back home, creature comforts. I think he's a two-goal player every game, two-goal game player. Watch out for this, because I think Mitchie G and Lukosius could be a real strong forward combination. And it's a pivotal year, I think, for Connor Rosie. I expect this guy here to really open up his role a little bit and become a bit of everywhere type player. I wouldn't be surprised to see this guy also swing down to halfback. We saw them trial that with Dan Houston and play him in the midfield. I reckon Connor Rosie might become that kind of like Nick Dacos at Port Adelaide, where he is the real primary ball user, which he already is, but he's an elite young talent. I think he's going to step up now to the top AFL echelons. 2024 was impressive. 23 games, 24 touches, 4.4 tackles, just under a goal a game. I think he's going to be an absolute stellar player this year. Now, from the training track, Joe Berry and Jack Lukosius have evidently stood out, which is really strong. They really are looking at these younger players. There's been a real focus, evidently, on attacking formation as well. So this could be really exciting, seeing Jack Lukosius work up the ground and Mitchie G work deep in the goal square. Now, they go into this season as the 6th oldest list and the 5th in terms of experience. And we've got them as a pass score of 14 wins. Expectations for me are high, but they are facing the 10th hardest fixture draw, which means it's going to be one of them ones that you've got to manage. And I feel like Port always manage the fixture really well. It's about really adding them layers for finals. Now, it's going to be an interesting one. Let me know what you think in the comments. I think they've got a good berth of seasoned veterans and emerging young talent. So they're well equipped. Where do you have Port? Especially with the succession plan. Does that affect them? Okay, well, we've had a good chin wag about the 4 teams. The Bombers' quest for consistency. Suns trying to break a finals hoodoo. Saints aiming to get some attacking flair and a bit of respect. And Port Adelaide's been the best of that second tier. What do you want to see from them? Where do you see them? Let's have a chat in the comments. I'm out of here. Pom out.